This video is brought to you with the support of TrueFire. Practice smart and play hard with TrueFire. Welcome to 5-Watt World, where we're interested in helping you get the most music from the least gear. After making the short history videos of the Gretsch guitars and the Gibson and Flightboard pickups, I was left really wanting to make an episode covering the history of the unique pickups used in Gretsch guitars. A quick email to get Tom Jones of TV Jones Pickups fame on board as my expert, and I felt ready. And here we are. So if you've always wondered about where those pickups get their unique tones, you're in the right place, because this is the 5-Watt World short history of Gretsch guitar pickups. If you like the style of video, be sure to subscribe. And to support what we do, grab a t-shirt, hoodie, or a 5-Watt World Barber Collaboration overdrive pedal. To become an even bigger part of 5-Watt World, sign up for the Friends of 5-Watt on Patreon. There's a friend level to suit any budget. And if you've always wanted to have your own YouTube channel but didn't know where to start, buy my YouTube Mastery for Musicians course. It's all the things I wish I knew when I started. All the links are in the description. The first post-World War II electric guitars from Gretsch revived the Electromatic Spanish name and debuted in 1949. They were non-cutaway, archtop guitars with F-holes. First offered only in sunburst and later in natural finish as well. They came with one single coil pickup, which the catalog described as a built-in Gretsch mic. It was the DeArmond pickup manufactured by Rowe Industries in Toledo, Ohio, a company run by a man named Harry DeArmond. In the 1951 catalog, the pickup would be referred to as the Gretsch DeArmond Fidelitone, and a few years later they settled on referring it to by the name we are now familiar with, the Dynasonic. Gretsch would use these pickups in all their electric guitars until the late 1950s. The Dynasonic is a single coil pickup with one bobbin wound with thinner copper wire. The pickup is wider and shorter than a Strat-style single coil. It has 6.38-inch Alnico 5-cylinder magnets, slightly offset in the middle section of the bobbin. With a single row of cylinder magnets, there is less inductance than a pickup with a bar magnet and pole screws. This helps bring out the clarity in the wound strings, as seen in Duane Eddy melodies that often feature the wound strings. Its construction gives it a unique, big, and glassy sound, and it's this bright tone that makes early Gretsch guitars known for their gorgeous cleans. It's no doubt that these clean tones are one of the reasons Gretsch guitars have found such favor in the worship guitar world. Despite all of these tonal upsides, Dynasonics are still a vintage-style single-coil pickup and are prone to general noise, and also why they can get wild at higher gain levels. Of course, this is either a plus or a minus, depending on what you're looking for. The new semi-solid Duojet guitars launched in 1953 would carry a pair of Dynasonics, both on the Duojet 6128 and the Brooklyn-based company's cowboy dream of the Roundup model, 6130. Hank Garland used a Duojet, and famously, George Harrison's first American-made guitar would be a Duojet as well. Color variations in the Duojet line, the Silver Jet and the Red Jet Firebird, carry the same pickups and control layout. A 3-way pickup selector for treble, both, and bass pickup, 2 volume controls and a master tone, and of course, the Gretsch signature master volume down on the cutaway. You can also see the pickups throughout the hollow body Gretsch line as well, in the high-end Country Club model and in the single pickup Streamliner. Just prior to the move to the humbucking FilterTron pickup since '58, you'd see the Dynasonics in the convertible, Clipper, and the smaller Rambler model. Eddie Cochran put the sound of the Dynasonic in front of the world in a cameo in the Jane Mansfield hit movie The Girl Can't Help It. But it was his classic Summertime Blues in 1958 that cemented him in rock and roll history. His music was a mix of rockabilly, country, and blues, which he played on his Dynasonic-equipped 1955 Gretsch 6120 guitar. Soon after buying the guitar, Cochran swapped out the neck pickup for a Gibson P90. It's said that he thought the Dynasonic had too much bass and hum in the neck slot. Around that same time, Duane Eddy played melodies on the bass strings of his 6120, creating a unique sound. Forever known for the twang, he also made heavy use of the Bigsby vibrato tailpiece. He used the guitar to produce hit instrumentals and would be given a signature model by Gretsch in 1997 and then again in 2012. And Gene Vincent and his Blue Caps had a big hit in the summer of 1956 with Bebop-A-Lula, capturing guitarist Cliff Gallop's jazz meets rockabilly style on his Duojet. Gallop so influenced Jeff Beck that Beck bought a 56 Duojet of his own in the 1990s. Beck said he was convinced that getting that exact model with those Dynasonic pickups was the key to getting Gallop's sound, a sound he'd been chasing since hearing it on those records as a young man. Beck said of Gallop that he got a characteristic, bell-like sound. And as I mentioned earlier, when George Harrison went looking for a Fender Stratocaster, he instead turned up a 1957 Duojet. He bought it in the summer of 1961 from Ivan Hayward, who had bought it on a trip to New York in 1957. George used the guitar on the majority of Please Please Me, before the guitar took him down the Gretsch path to his first Country Gentleman, and the FilterTron pickups loaded there. I've been using TrueFire for years, so they were the perfect partner for 5-Watt World. Like a lot of guitar players, I'm interested in all kinds of music, and TrueFire always has something to scratch the itch I have for learning more about guitar. To take full advantage of the variety, I've always subscribed to the All Access Pass, which lets me use everything in the TrueFire catalog. As a viewer of 5-Watt World, you get an exclusive 50% discount on the All Access Pass, or you can get 35% off any course in the catalog by using the code here. I've learned so much from TrueFire that I'm confident that you can too. Sign up using the links in the description to support 5-Watt World and get some great lessons at the same time. Practice smart and play hard with TrueFire. I'd like to thank TrueFire for their support in making this video. The introduction of the Chet Atkins 6120 in 1955 saw the Dynasonic pickups on a guitar design that would carry the brand into the next era. But Chet Atkins was frustrated with the Dynasonic single coil pickups from the start. Chet said, "I played that orange Gretsch 6120 guitar, but I hated the sound of the pickups at first. The magnets pulled so strong on the string that there was no sustain there, especially on the bass." Around that same time, he bought an amp from inventor Ray Butts, and he began talking to Butts about designing a new pickup that would address his frustrations. After listening to Chet's concerns about noise, balance between the pickups, overall tone, and hum, Butts set out to make a new style of pickup altogether. In an interview, Butts remembered, "My idea from the beginning was to build a humbucking pickup. I knew about the concept from working with Transformers, and the Ampex people had used the humbucking principle in the pickup of their tape recorder heads." Butts built a prototype and showed it to Atkins, who then pitched it to Gretsch. This happened to coincide with the desire at Gretsch to drop the DeArmond Dynasonic single-coil pickups. What had once been an exclusive arrangement with Gretsch had eroded as DeArmond pickups had begun being sold to many cheaper guitar brands. Butts worked closely with Gretsch on the specs and the new control layout to go with the new pickups. Gretsch filed the patent application for the new pickup on January 22, 1957, but it wasn't granted until June 30, 1959. Gretsch debuted the pickups at the Summer NAMM show in '57, the same year that Gibson was displaying their new humbucking pickup. Though Butts contended that he had been the first to develop the idea, having pictures of Chet playing a guitar with the prototype pickups from much earlier, Gibson complained, and this delayed the granting of the patents to either company. In the end, Fred Gretsch and Ted McCarty were good friends, and so they agreed to let the matter slide without incident. As the resulting tone of each pickup is quite different, this live and let live solution worked out for both companies, and for all of us in the long run. Named the new humbucking pickup the FilterTron, and by '58 was being used throughout the most of the line. The pickup covers were emblazoned with the words "patent applied for," and those would be there until 1960 when the actual patent numbers would take its place. Gretsch crowed of the new pickups, "The finest engineers in the country were engaged in the development of the FilterTron heads for guitar." Years later, this still amused Butts. He's saying in an interview, "The finest engineers in the country, eh? That was me." Gretsch really never talked about Butts' involvement, and to this day many people don't know the story of his creation of the FilterTron humbucking pickup. Inside a FilterTron, you'll see a similar design to a Gibson-style humbucker. There are 2 bobbins, but each is wound with less copper wire than a Gibson PAF. They also used slightly larger number 6 pole screw versus the smaller number 5 pole screws in the Gibson. The bobbins on the FilterTron are closer together than a Gibson-style humbucker. The narrower aperture helps retain more clarity. The FilterTron uses 2 rows of pole pieces instead of 1 row of screws and 1 with steel slugs, as seen on a PAF. This is part of the immediate visual difference in the 2 types of pickups. And finally, they used brass pickup covers as opposed to the nickel-silver covers on the Gibson pickups. Having less magnet wire yields less output and helps retain more clarity. To achieve the critical balance, a thicker 1/4 inch Alnico magnet and larger pole screws are used to add back inductance. Inductance adds more power and less treble to a pickup. This offsets the difference in output with the Gibson. The more compact design with a narrower bobbin aperture, larger pole screws, and thicker magnet give the musician the ability to pick smooth and clean notes or dig in and get that growl and bloom. This combination of clarity and punch is what makes FilterTrons the go-to pickup in genres as wide-ranging as modern worship, rockabilly, jazz, and hard rock. The briefest exposure to Brian Setzer's punching out some leads or Malcolm Young kicking off every AC/DC tune, and you'll understand why they are still so revered to this present day. Much of what George Harrison played on a Gretsch was on his 2 Country Gentleman guitars, both outfitted with FilterTrons. A 6120 with FilterTrons created all the punchy guitars on the Who's Next album. The slamming tones of Won't Get Fooled Again show off the amazing driven sounds possible with a late 50s FilterTron. And of course, the reason we even have FilterTron pickups at all. Chet Atkins recorded the majority of his most famous records with them from the time of their release in '58 until he left Gretsch in the late 70s. The FilterTron was used in most of the Gretsch guitars by '58. The thin-line body clipper model continued to use the Dynasonic pickups until they ran out of their stock, but by '59 they were given an early version of Gretsch's own single coil, the HiloTron. Dan Duffy, who worked at Gretsch Quality Control from the 1950s into the 1970s, said that the HiloTron was designed by Jerry Perito, who worked in the Gretsch woodshop. This new single-coil pickup was developed alongside the FilterTron as part of the plan to move away from using the de-Armand pickups. The HiloTron pickup would be used in the next Gretsch Anniversary model guitars, which were built in beautiful 2-tone finishes starting in 1960 and running until '71. Also, as the 61 Tennessean gained the sealed F-holes of the Country Gentleman and its single FilterTron was swapped out to a pair of HiloTrons. These changes led to the model gaining real popularity as a budget price model in the 60s. It was this model that we'd see George Harrison playing from '63 to '65, including during the Help album and tour, as well as on the famous show at Shea Stadium. He used the guitar with its single coil voice alongside his Country Gentleman guitars that he also used during that same period. The HiloTron pickup uses a single bobbin wound with thinner magnet wire. It is the same bobbin as those found in the FilterTron, which has 2. The holes in the bobbin were drilled out to fit a larger number 8 slot head pole screws. The pole screws are screwed into an L-shaped piece of steel. The steel piece adds inductance and acts as a bridge for the magnetic field. The 1/4 inch Alnico magnet is attracted to the sides of the pole screws. The pole pieces are magnetized by the bar magnet. This allows them to pick up the vibrations of the strings. On the other side of the magnet, there's a thin steel blade glued on. The HiloTron pickup was top-mounted to the guitars in the pre-Baldwin era. The unique construction of the HiloTron with the magnet positioned to the side of the pole pieces and the added steel blades makes for an interesting tone. They're a quieter pickup because they have a lower DC resistance. A P90, for example, might have a DC resistance of around 8K, and that's going to be picking up much more noise, where a HiloTron averages about 3.2K, and it will pick up much less. All the steel in the pickup, the larger screws, etc., helps create more inductance, which helps with more output and a bit less high end. Given that they're single coils, you might assume that they'd be a bit too edgy for gain, but in fact, all the inductance makes for a very dynamic but warmer tone that works very well with gain. last of the Gretsch's new 60s solid body guitars was the $395 Astrojet, which came out in '63. And featured a new FilterTron style pickup, the SuperTron. Of the Astrojet, the catalog said, "Hand-carved edges highlight its unusual body design." Well, not so unusual in the wake of the Gibson SG that was released in '61. It was truly an odd-shaped mashup of lost styles that has seemed to have been left out in the sun too long. Even the 4 on the side, 2 on the other side headstock was a departure from traditional styling. In addition, it was rather large, being a fully 16 inches at the lower bout, and it ended up being rather heavy into the bargain. The SuperTron was visually notable for the absence of pole pieces. They were a move to a hotter FilterTron, but they were never popular. We'd see SuperTrons again in the '69 Rockjet guitar and several other late '60s high-end Gretsch guitars like the Country Gentleman and Viking models. Instead of 12 adjustable number 6 pole screws, SuperTrons used 2 steel blades. When Gretsch originally launched the SuperTrons, their blades were made up of a number of very thin laminates. This helps create less eddy currents, and with less eddy currents, more high end is present. In general, SuperTrons have the same output as traditional FilterTrons, but with a warmer tone due to the higher inductance that comes from their different construction. The use of blades results in a warmer, slightly less dynamic tone compared to FilterTrons with pole screws. SuperTron neck pickups work well with jazz, while a set of SuperTrons can work really well with blues and rock on the bridge. Chet Atkins had a custom version which used a solid blade that increased inductance, yielding a SuperTron with an even warmer, fuller tone. Paul Yandell, Chet's sideman for 25 years, told Tom Jones from TV Jones that after testing many types, Chet preferred the 1010 shopping cart steel for the blades. These differences are captured in the TV Jones Classic Plus bridge pickups. The SuperTron design was not a history-making design in itself, but it did point the way towards Gretsch creating versions of different pickups in their later catalogs. Gretsch often went their own way in guitar design, and I think the pickups are one of the areas where this is particularly true. It is one of the main things that make the Gretsch sound wholly unique. Like most great innovations, the design came from trying to solve a problem, and it yielded something that is still relevant today. So who's your favorite Gretsch artist, and what pickups did he or she use? Put it in the comments for everyone to enjoy. If you like this video, you'd probably love my overall short history of Gretsch guitars. I need to thank John Cordy for giving us more Gretsch pickup goodness on the intro and outro of the video. I need to thank Carter Vintage for the playing examples on vintage Gretsch guitars that can only be found at Carter. I also need to thank the guys at Vintage Guitar Oldenburg, a great shop for vintage guitars in Germany. And of course, I need to thank Tom Jones of TV Jones Pickups for reviewing the script for technical accuracy and for adding the details that only decades of producing the finest Gretsch-style pickups can provide. I also relied heavily on Tony Bacon's The Gretsch Electric Guitar Book. I want to thank everyone that stopped by the online store and grabbed some merch or a 5-watt World Barber Collaboration overdrive pedal. You keep the channel going. If you're interested in starting your own YouTube channel, check out my course, YouTube Mastery for Musicians. I outline all the parts of starting and running a channel there. It's the head start I wish I'd had. In particular, I want to thank my friends of 5-watt on Patreon. It's the guitar community I've always wanted. You're all 5-watt world. I just make the videos. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that too. Thanks for hanging with me until the end. Until next time, I'm Keith Williams. Thanks for being a part of the 5-watt world.